Welcome to Lenses and Lyrics, where music and photography collide. This podcast dives into the crossover world of photographers who are or were musicians, those whose passion for sound influenced the way they see through the lens. Connect with all things Lenses and Lyrics at lenseslyrics.com. Ash, this is really exciting. We crossed paths on social. I believe you filled out my survey on music and photography and the overlap and stuff. And so your name and your work caught my attention as I was looking at people who were responding to that survey. And I saw that you photograph music. So I'm like, this is, somebody I got to speak to. So as just to kick things off, before you picked up a camera, what role did music play in your life?
I was actually pretty multifaceted. First, obviously I was a huge fan. I went to a ton of different concerts, festivals, just going to the club to check out some of my favorite DJs. And then, as I mentioned, DJing, at the time I was a DJ. I had learned from another gentleman who has a large company out in my area, and he actually picked me up to, kind of be his tech and help out with the technical side of, audio getting set up, making sure the PA system was working properly. And eventually I crossed over into just, doing the DJing thing by myself, which was awesome. But it wasn't necessarily my calling. So after some time, going out, listening, seeing what the world had to offer with music, I decided I really wanted to spend most of my time in the studio, which is where I then, pivoted and spent a lot of my time was learning how to produce music, how to record, and how to mix. And that skill ended up becoming very valuable for me because, as it turns out, most people who say they want to do music never actually learn how to record, mix, and master their music. They usually get somebody else to do that. And that was awesome for me because I ended up being pretty good at it. So actually, I took that and I went to Full Sail University in Florida to really try to formalize that education. I felt like there was something that I might have been missing. And there was a lot of nuance and context to the techniques that I was learning on YouTube and just testing out on my own that getting to actually have explained to me in person was just amazing. And, the whole time still going to festivals, still going to the club, still checking out anybody coming into town like, oh, who's this? Very open palette for music. After I finished up at Full Sail, I came back and actually got a job with Live Nation working at the Queen because I wanted to work in production. Unfortunately, the production department at my local venue, the Queen, was fully packed out. There was a waiting list to get in. So I kind of just worked there, kind of hoping that somebody would quit their job, and that didn't quite work out. But that was okay, because in the meantime, I was working on opening a studio up here in Wilmington, which did end up working out. And I did that for about 5 years straight after I got out of working with the Queen, that was a great time. I don't regret any of that time spent. We made a lot of great music, recorded a lot of awesome things, and made a lot of people really happy because they're able to approach their dreams from a new standpoint. And making people's dreams realistic was something that was really humbling for me as I was working in the studio. People would come in, they would play me a preview track, and they're like, I know I'm not Drake, but I really want to sound like that. And I'm like, I'd be able to get you like 70% of the way there. The other 25, you're definitely going to have to work on this, and this. And, actually being able to sit down with people and work through that was really humbling. And honestly, just, it felt good. It was fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you've already lived some of what I wanted to do with my career straight out of high school. I actually went to Berklee College of Music.
Oh, nice.
As a recording major, and I thought I was going to own a recording studio and just record bands the rest of my life. Life changed.
Here we are.
But that's fantastic. So you owned a studio for 5 years. You ran this?
Yeah. So there was a point where I had partnered with somebody and we opened up a joint venture, and we were doing that for a number of years. And then that individual actually got sick with brain cancer, and I stepped back to give him the space he needed to get the treatment that he needed. it was just a lot for me to ask him to help me continue running the studio while he was undergoing treatment. So I just had to step back and give him that space. But in the meantime, I actually ended up operating out of other local studios. A lot of places knew my name, they knew who I was. So they said, yeah, you can use our equipment pretty much any time. Just pay this rate. And they would give me a huge discount on their general hourly rate because now they don't have to pay an engineer. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't have to start over. I can actually just take clients at whatever location they want, which was, again, a huge advantage over a lot of other folks who are, kind of stuck with what equipment they had. I could kind of go to the studio that had what I needed for the session. But yeah, being able to do that for 5 years was outstanding. It paid all of my bills. It was truly a dream. Like, I remember I went to go buy a car for the first time by myself. And I just brought my mom around because, never bought a car by myself, never done this. I don't want to get, thrown around in the wind by some random car salesman. And I was able to actually get approved. I got a nice little Mercedes. I was like living for a couple of years. And they're like, wow, I can't believe, like, it was really the dream. Music was paying for my lifestyle. And I was like, wow, I should like write about this or something. People need to know that this is possible. And then the next step for me came when, I started meeting artists who were making music that really resonated with me personally. And, they would ask me, hey, do you produce? And, at the time, I produced music, but I never sold myself as the producer. It was always the engineer, the guy who helped you get the recording right. So I said, I do produce. We can kind of work on something, but I can't promise it'll be anything. And they were happy to work with me on that. And I kind of stepped into being the executive producer for a couple of different folks who wanted tracks that they couldn't necessarily find on, like, just by typing in type beat on YouTube. So we were working on that. I was, calling up some contacts, if they needed a drummer, I could get them a drummer. If they needed a guitarist, a saxophonist, whoever really, we could get them in the studio and do some recording, as long as, of course, everybody had to have the budget. We want to keep it above board, make sure all our creators get paid, which I'm really passionate about now still, as you'll see, as we go on with this narrative here. But that was really awesome. And I think I'd probably still be doing that today if it was not for the pandemic. The pandemic came and pretty much wiped out my entire client base almost overnight. I think there were 2 waves of clients that I got mid-pandemic where I was like, oh, wow, I'm pretty busy again. The first wave was stimulus checks, folks, which you might find funny, but, a lot of people got their stimulus check and the first thing on their mind was to record their album. And I respect it. At the time I was like, the world is kind of on fire right now, guys, but I appreciate you coming here to do this with me.
Yeah. There was definitely a resurgence in a way from COVID of people who, might have recorded in the past or might have never recorded their own music before and realize, what, the world is now virtual, right? Where everybody's at home working. I can record my music at home, right? So I definitely see there is a shift. I mean, look, even there's that Netflix documentary of the Eras tour from Taylor Swift, Swift, right? And in that, she even talks about how during COVID, she recorded 1 or 2 albums at home on her bed, like didn't go anywhere, and recorded albums that still are like Grammy winning and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's doable for anybody to do, and it's you could do it with whatever budget you want. Between hardware getting more affordable and software easier to come by and being very powerful in itself, heck, there's people that are using DaVinci Resolve to record and edit music and not even worrying about the video aspect of it, right? And it's free.
I did see somebody talking about that. I was like, oh wow, I guess you can do that.
So that must have been your moment, from what I'm gathering from this story, is that must have been your moment of, okay, maybe recording isn't where I'm going to make my money, where I'm going to make my living. Maybe I need to find something else that's creative to, put my name on.
So it was a multi-part process there. Like I said, there were 2 waves. The first wave was the people who got their stimulus check and said, time to record an album. The second wave was actually politicians who needed to run for mayor and the Senate. And a lot of folks were coming to me to record like the radio ads, PSAs, and that kind of thing. And as soon as that started dying down, I was looking, it was coming towards the end of the year. It's like August. And I'm like, I don't have anything at all on my calendar. This is the first time this has happened in actually a long time, ever. So I kind of was freaking out. At the time, I had already started with photography as a hobby. And a couple people had brought me in to do their weddings. Those people also canceled. So I really had nothing. And a good friend of mine came to me and said, "Hey, are you looking for some daytime work?" Because, everybody knew me as a night owl at the time. All my studio clients would be booking 7 p.m. and onward. All the things I photograph are, 10 p.m. onwards for a lot of them. So he's like, "Are you looking for some daytime work? My office just needs somebody to do some paperwork." And long story short, I accidentally became a full-time accountant. I don't know how that happened. We just kind of clicked because I had been doing my accounting work myself for God knows how long, since like 2015, when I first started making money doing DJing. It turns out I had actually really learned a lot. So they put me in charge of getting everything caught up. As I was working in the firm, a lot of the skills I learned to manage my creative businesses immediately became very useful managing pretty much any other kind of business. So I kind of just climbed the ladder super quick. I spent four and a half years there. And by the time, by today, I would be the, account manager for, I want to say 12 different businesses. And that was a really interesting experience because what it taught me was just being a lot more present about money and finances and that kind of thing. And again, with the end of the pandemic, photography came back, events came back, and I was starting to do that again. And I was just thinking to myself, like all 2024, I'm like, man, I really like photography, but I really want to focus on doing this one part. Because I'm not really like a wedding type of guy. Like weddings are great. They pay a good amount of money. I was never really there at the wedding to photograph for the money. Like I was looking to do what I loved and capture these moments. And the wedding was awesome. It was a great place to do that, but it was a lot of pressure for something that I wasn't particularly, like I didn't particularly enjoy being at a wedding. Now, a concert, that was something that I particularly loved doing. So I had made tons of time to get involved with local open mics, showcases. I even got put on the board of directors for the Delaware Music Network, just because, I was showing up, I was supporting their causes, and they seemed to, I seemed to know a lot of the members and a lot of the people who were involved. So they got me involved. And from there, I did a 18-month analysis of their open mics, where I just showed up and photographed all the featured artists every month. And then we did interviews. I did some written pieces. We did some videos. And I actually write about that on my Substack because, that was when I finally stepped back from working the open mic, I was like, man, I did a lot of these. Hang on, there's got to be a lesson here. So it was kind of that experience where I was like, maybe I don't need to focus on anything else but this one thing right here, this one vertical. A lot of people online say you can't make money doing X, you can't do Y, you can't live off of Z. And I'm like, but are they doing it, or are they just working a 9-to-5 and saying that? I had another conversation with another gentleman, and we came to the conclusion that a lot of people online try something for maybe 10 minutes and then say, yeah, you're just not going to make a living doing that. And I'm like, but you've only been doing it for 10 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, we see a lot of that with the press, getting press to get in, the press pass to get into different shows. Somebody will, do 3 pitches to stadium events and get no responses and then say, man, things are really different these days. That's like, but you only did 3 pitches. I'm seeing people talking about having to do 10, 15, 20 pitches before they get one response. And people are online are talking about giving up. So I decided to shut all of that out and just really lock in and focus on just serving this one type of client, musicians, managers, people who are actually making the tour happen, people who are trying to get more dates on their tour, people who are trying to really show off what their artists have to offer without necessarily, going on TV and, parading them around. I mean, that's good too if they can get it. I'm all for it. As you know, a live stream concert is just another experience, another way to enjoy that experience. So no hate there.
Yeah.
But for me, it was really capturing the moments, and stills that really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So you've had a heck of a journey with music and even now in the photography. And I wonder what you've listened to a lot of music, especially as you're photographing different concerts and whatnot. Music inspires you like today. Like if you were to say, I need to go and just get into my cave and be creative for the next 5 hours, what music would you put on that just gets you in that zone?
oh, asking the deep questions. So I would have to say there's two genres that I really, really love when I need to. For example, I have an editing playlist. First, it's alternative hip hop and alternative R&B kind of together. Hip hop being just this absolutely massive genre now. There's a lot of different derivatives, but the alternative side of it, where the beats aren't necessarily what you would hear on the radio per se, is just there's something cathartic about that. Growing up, I was always kind of like the odd one out in the friend group. I was always into something different. And that kind of resonates with me as I'm, listening to music. I'm like, this person sounds like the odd man out, like, especially when you look at who their peers are. R&B is the same kind of way, especially again on that alternative side of things. And then the second genre is house music. Absolutely love my house music. House music has gotten me through so many tough times in my life, just, putting on a beat and vibing to whatever the keyboard player is laying down, whatever the DJ's got going on. We're just vibing. And, night rider music is what I call it. I get on the highway. It's, 2 a.m. I've got a 2-hour drive back to Delaware. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to put on some Zoo.
That's fantastic. So on a similar road, just to go with the road topic here for a second, how does your musical taste and preferences impact what jobs you would prioritize? Let's say you had 5 opportunities lined up, right? That you could take if you have it, or maybe you've got 2 that are the same day that you've got to make a decision on. Like, would your musical taste influence which projects you take, or is it more this one will pay better, or this one will give me more flexibility? Like, how does that all combine when it comes to which concerts you would photograph, for example?
Okay. So there is a bit of a hierarchy to it. First of all, I am a huge fan of convenience when it comes to concerts. Concerts are already really hectic. They're already really unpredictable. The artist could be 2 hours late and, just not tell you sometimes. That's definitely happened before. So I always want to pick the shows that are the most convenient to shoot so I can always adapt to any unplanned instances, is what I'll call them. But beyond that, if I had to choose, between 2 opportunities that were equally convenient, I think for me, the way my musical taste would affect my choice is by my knowledge of the community that consumes that art. So, for example, actually this was 2024, I shot a house music event up in Philadelphia called Departed. And I pretty much dropped everything to go shoot that event because house music. But for me, the determining factor was the community. I already knew that I liked the house music community, very accepting, very open, and I wanted to create images that would resonate with those people. I liked the art direction for that event a lot, and I thought, wow, whoever was working on this, they went into the details. They did their research. They know their audience. They know what this group is into, and they're channeling that mystical foreign beach energy that a lot of house music loves to kind of reference to. And they really put that into an art form and made that the visual identity for the event. And I just knew when I saw that, yeah, the people going to this event, those are my people. I'm going to feel at home walking into this event. I'm not going to feel like I'm intruding. I'm going to feel like I belong here. And when I feel like I belong and I pick up my camera, it's just a whole different methodology, thought process. It's a whole different way I approach the shooting. And I have so much more fun with it. The experimental side of what I want to do and how I want to shoot really comes out in those events. I don't feel constrained like I would, for example, shooting another show where the visual is, mainly like a single person standing in front of a mic. Whereas with house music, yeah, we have some DJs and I could probably get 10 hero images of the DJ in maybe 15, 20 minutes of just them playing. But then that leaves the other 2 hours and 45 minutes of the event for me to roam around and shoot anything I really feel like shooting. And with house music events, they're always going to be, people are dressing up different types of ways from, somebody might show up in sweats and a t-shirt. Somebody might show up in a full tuxedo and somebody might show up dressed as like a Greek or Roman statue. And like all of these three people, they're like best friends. Let's get that in the same image.
Yeah.
That's really telling a story now. Like, okay.
Yeah, it is. Let's flip that now. And let's say you're about to give advice to a photographer who's about to shoot some concerts, but they don't feel emotionally connected to the music in any way. But maybe it's their first opportunity to photograph a concert, so they took the job, right? Whatever it might be. They're getting paid. They're good at what they do, but they're not emotionally connected to the music. What advice would you give to that photographer?
I would say focus on landing your shot list. Oftentimes you don't get a shot list with concerts, but I always advise people that they should make one. Go on the artist's Spotify, go on their website, see what the artist's visuals are like. You don't necessarily have to match those visuals 100%, but it's a fun project to try to get close. And I think that's great advice. If you're not connected to the music, check the artist's visuals, check what they're putting out. See if you can pick up the pieces that they're putting down for the fans, and then work your darnest to match that output and see if you can add to that asset portfolio that they're building there. Because if you're not connected to the music, and you're going to photograph a concert, I assume you love photography. So if you're not connected to the music, at least be connected to the photography, be connected to the work that has been done before you, and see if you can build upon that. And I think that's a fun project for me. And that's honestly how I approach a lot of music, where I'm not particularly the target audience. I can at least look and say, okay, this is what they're putting down. Let me see if I can add to that. And that's huge. I think the artists, especially if they have management, appreciates that more than anything, because those images immediately become useful to them. And if those images are immediately useful to them, you might be getting a call back. It might not even be, for the same band. Maybe the next band is somebody you really love. And that's kind of the dream. Like, we all want to shoot for our idols. So, you got to lay that foundation brick by brick. And even if you don't know, even if it's a complete no-name band, even if you think they're garbage completely, that's not necessarily what you're there to do. You're there to capture those moments, and you're there to add to that artist stockpile of imagery. Or if you're shooting for press, you're there to add to the press outlet. So, depending on who you're shooting for, if you're shooting for the artist, check their website, check their visuals. If you're shooting for a press outlet, check past articles, see what other photographers who shoot for this outlet are doing. There's a nice book called Steal Like an Artist. I'm sure a lot of people have read it, but that's kind of in the same vein,
Yeah, 100%. It's great advice. Not only is it good for your creative brain, but it's also good for your business. So that's fantastic advice.
Absolutely.
Now, was there a defining moment, a first concert you photographed, where you realized that from the photography side, you're now seeing music differently than the entire stadium that's there. You know, watching, listening to this artist, that you're hearing it different, you're seeing it different because you're now in it. Was there a moment? Has that happened, and what was that?
Absolutely. So this actually happened twice. The first time was it was a college event called U Dance for University of Delaware, where they raise money for childhood cancer.
Okay.
And University of Delaware, they go hard. I'm not going to lie to you. They really do. So they have this venue called the Bob Carpenter Center. It's usually where they host like graduations and stuff. But instead, on during UDance, it's open for, I think it's like a full 12 hours or something like that. And they pretty much party the entire time. Before the last hour, I want to say, is called the rave hour. And before that, they just have various bands coming in and playing. And I recall I was, in between assignments at UDance. I was there to shoot for two different people, and neither one of them had anything lined up for like the next 2 hours. And it was like I could go home and come back, or I could just hang out here and see what's going on stage. And I decided to hang out. And this is a local cover band called The Rockets. They came up on stage and proceeded to absolutely own the energy in the whole room. Like, I don't think anybody who had played before them had actually really commanded the crowd like they were. And I was able to get into the pit because I, of course, have my photo pass and all my credentials and everything just ready to go. I was basically on standby. And I said, honestly, these guys didn't hire me. They don't even know me, but this is amazing. I want to capture this. And as I was working on framing and just figuring stuff out, because I have to do that sometimes. I shoot on primes, which is not ideal during a concert. So I really have to pick my locations and shots. But as I'm doing that, I'm like really watching the artists on stage, how they're interacting with each other, the cues they're passing to each other, and how they're lining up each song and what the next song is going to be. I'm really paying attention to these details. I'm like, wow, these guys are super cool under pressure. You could tell they've done this hundreds, possibly thousands of times. Like, they're so in sync. And when I finally pulled up my camera, they were so in sync that I was able to predict moments, like big moments happening on stage that were supposed to wow the audience. And they did. I don't want to say supposed to. They really did wow the audience. They wowed me sitting in the pit. So, I was able to use the onstage cues that they were giving each other, though, to really capture these key moments. And I think it captured like 6 or 7 like hero style images of the individual artists on stage, just doing an action of something. And all 6 of those shots went into the portfolio. And as I was editing, I was like, wow, this is really intricate work that these people are doing. Not only are they entertaining and coordinating, but they're dealing with the emotions in the room and making sure that each song is a complement to those emotions. They even took a request at one point, I believe, where they kind of just yelled out, and somebody in the crowd yelled out, and everybody was like, yeah, that song. And they're like, okay. So at that point I said, there's a lot going on stage that I'm really interested in seeing more about this. I think this is something I want to pursue a lot more. Because at the time, I'd mostly been shooting in nightclubs, mainly dealing with DJs and independent rappers who are trying to get their music out there. I'd never, shot for a band that had gone on tour. And like I said, had done this hundreds, possibly thousands of times. And, seeing that difference, seeing what was happening on stage and being able to really predict and capture those moments that was a opinion changing moment for me. That was a very crucial moment for me, because I realized how much I really loved photographing musicians right in that moment. The second time actually happened at the open mic series I was telling you about that I shot for 18 months. We have this thing with open mics where it's kind of like you kind of know what you're going to get. And that's not true. That's not true. That's not true at all. I came here to say that's not true at all. After going to 18 open mics, I don't know what I'm going to get. Sometimes it's entirely independent musicians. Sometimes a Grammy award-winning producer walks in with his entire team and they decide to lay down a mini concert for the whole room. And everything that happens in between those 2 points is possible at an open mic. And shooting the open mics really taught me that. There were a lot of people who came up on stage at those open mics that had no business being at an open mic whatsoever. Grammy award winning producer PC Beats, who goes by T. Anthony, came in one day. Like I mentioned, he brought his whole team. He literally put on a curated show for everybody that day. I think the room had like 50 people in it. I'm like, what is he doing here? Like, how did we land this guy? Another artist I really appreciated had just come back from Africa. She had scored an entire film, and she was with her child, and she brought on stage a little hand drum and just gave us a very stripped down performance of one of her top tracks right now, which has over 1 million streams on Spotify. And at the time, me not knowing this, I'm just listening like, wow, this is one of the best singers I've ever heard in my entire life. And she's sitting there with a hand drum, just tapping along, and her child is not running wild, but definitely adding to the audience's entertainment as she's like interacting with her mom. She's completely unaware that this is a performance her mom is doing for a whole group of people here. And that's like, this is a real raw moment. Like, this person came here and is sharing their soul with us. Again, in that moment, I really felt something in my soul. My heart and soul just aligned on that and said, yeah, I want to do more of this. And I went home later and found out, oh, she's like really popular. Like, she really does this. And her name was Tella Delage. And to this day, one of my favorite artists. She ended up dropping an EP this year. And again, one of my favorite releases of the year. And it was just because I went to an open mic. And that was all. That was the cost of admission for, being in that fan club, and I'm forever grateful. So those were definitely the two moments: one huge stage production, one no production, stripped down, intimate moments, and both really rang true for me and really, gave me my North Star.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
This is why I do these.
Yeah, that story you mentioned, you kind of like briefly touched on it. You use primes, which I also love primes. There's only one scenario where I don't use primes. And you would think in concert photography of any kind, you would not want to use primes. So what primes are you using? I want to guess first. Yeah. I'm assuming you've got two camera bodies on you?
Actually, I only rock with one. I like to be very lean. Definitely needed those dual card slots, but I like to be very lean. I need to move. A lot of concerts, because I shoot for the artist, I'm not limited to the first 3 songs. So I want to be lean. I don't want to carry around a ton of extra equipment. I literally just want to be able to reach into my bag, grab exactly what I need, slam it on, and take the shot. Yeah. And because I've been doing a lot of that aforementioned like prediction based on on-stage cues, checking with the DJ, talking to the artist beforehand, getting the set list, it usually isn't a problem for me. But you're right though. Every single concert photographer I've spoken to was like, I just have these 2 lenses. Yeah. And I'm like, I'll probably get a second body eventually though.
I am guessing that you've got a 50 on for a lot of it. Only because if you're doing primes and you're running around, you've got to be pretty versatile with, and 50's a pretty versatile for concert focal length, from my opinion. But you're going to need one for when you're on stage. If you're getting up close at any point, you're going to need something wider than 50. So I'm assuming you've got somewhere a 24 or 35 somewhere in your bag.
Okay.
And then also when you're going far back, 50 is going to be too far. So I'm assuming you've got a 135 in there. How far off am I?
2 out of 3. But the third guess is very close. I want to give you partial credit because I actually do want a 135. I want to buy a 135 really badly. The 1.8 135 from Nikon, the Plena, is like my dream lens right now. But it's a 50, a 24, and an 85.
85. Okay. Yeah. My go-tos are 35 and 85.
Understandable.
So I photograph surprise proposals a lot. And so I have 2 camera bodies on me. The one on my left has my 35 on it. The one on my right during the proposal itself has a telephoto zoom lens on it, 35 to 150 from Tamron. And just because you have to with like such a fast paced, short period of time, you can't think about switching lenses.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
But otherwise I'm using primes. So very interesting that you're doing that with concert photography. Very interesting. Couple more questions left for you. And so, as somebody who has played in bands, as somebody who has toured, who has photographed bands, I totally understand there's that balance between loving the music and loving the photography. And I also know from having photographed bands that I absolutely love, sometimes you get immersed in the moment of the music and you forgot that you have a camera in your hand. How do you balance sometimes forgetting that, oh, I actually need to photograph these people and not just jam out to the music as a fan? How do you do that? How do you do that balance so you're not losing shots that you should have gotten?
So for me, actually, there is a really specific thing that's going through my head, especially if I love the band or DJ that's playing. First and foremost, it's, wow, these guys sound really good. Can I make them look as good as they sound? And that is like my driving, like if I'm hearing a song that is making me vibe, I'm more inspired in that moment more than ever to go and get the shot that I'm thinking of. Like my brain might work a little differently than most in that regard, because when I start to hear a song, I think about the visuals in my head for that song, not necessarily the visuals the artist put out, but if I'm like listening to a song on Spotify and there's no music video, in my head, I can imagine what that music video would look like. And it works a lot of the same way at a live performance. Like, wow, this is like a really awesome moment. They're really singing into my soul. And that just inspires me more than ever to pick up my camera and get in there, because if they're singing to my soul right now, I can see it in their eyes. I really can. And I really want to get in there and capture that moment. If you look through my portfolio, you can definitely catch a few of those shots where I was like, oh my gosh, this is it right here. I need to get this. I need to get this.
Yeah.
I'm
my favorite
about getting in there for that moment.
Yeah. My favorite. So before joining, I'm currently wearing a shirt from my karate school. Before joining the karate school, I photographed the school for many, many years. And I find when I photograph bands and when I photograph karate, I find that I get so immersed in it that sometimes I'm actually so in tune with what's happening that I am ready to click the shutter button for an exact moment I know is coming up. And that is like the best feeling in the world, when you don't even have to look at your screen. You know you got it because you know the music, or you know the whatever it is happening so perfectly in your head that you're going to nail it no matter what. So
I just to add to that was the feeling I was having when I was shooting the Rockets at UDance. Like, I had never heard these guys play before, but I guess years of working in the recording studio and just helping people put songs together helped me recognize song structure as I was at the gig, just kind of inherently, and being able to really lock in for those moments is amazing. I completely understand that feeling. Like, oh my gosh, if it's a song I know, an artist I know too, like, oh yeah, no. The moment he's about to say this next verse, I need to be there like before he gets to the third bar, because that fourth, fifth, and sixth bar, the audience is going to be going crazy. I want to get that shot from the pit, like looking down at the audience, or I want to get him interacting with the audience on stage or something like that. Whatever it is happening, like seeing that in your head ahead of time is so helpful. And
100%.
I think the people who can do that honestly take the best shots at the concert.
Yeah, for sure. My last question to you is something I've been asking every guest. I don't know when I started asking this question, but it's now a tradition. I'm finishing off every episode with the question of, if your photography style was a genre of music, what would it be and why?
Oh.
It's a tough one, but it really gets you thinking. And, as somebody who likes house music, who likes R&B and hip hop music, your answer may not be either of those three, which I think is really fun when that happens. But it also could be.
If I had to say, I would probably say, like, this is debatable if you consider pop a genre, but I would probably say pop music. My photography style looks, to me, very colorful, very varied as far as, you know, what I could be taking a picture of. I know it's all concerts, but I don't discriminate against any particular type of genre. Like if I get a punk show, I get a punk show. If I get a rap show, I get a rap show, you know? So it ultimately ends up for me looking through the whole portfolio. Like I really like my colors to pop. I really like them to stand out on screen or on page, whatever the medium is. And in that regard, I definitely think that's the part of my style that is most nearest and dear to me, I guess I would say. And in that regard, I would definitely say it's kind of like pop. Like it's a little bit of everything, but polished really well. And that's what we're here to consume today.
That's right.
A little bit of every genre thrown in there.
Yeah, that's right. I love it. See, it's always fascinating. Yeah, it's always fascinating just to hear, because you don't normally think about your photography as a genre of music, but you know what? There's this overlap. Yeah. Ash, thank you so much for hopping in here, for chatting with me. I love hearing about your background, and hopefully everybody who listens to this episode also will walk away with some fun advice and some inspiration to, you know, if they're thinking about doing concert photography, if they are, maybe thinking about it a different way. So it's been a blast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. I can't wait to hear the full thing.